Hey, everybody. This is Life is a Gamble, episode number 3, Wonderhussy. Before we start, just a couple of brief announcements. I always love hearing from you. I love hearing from me, too. But I love hearing from you, and you can reach me at lifeisagamblepod@gmail.com, or you can find me on Twitter at RWM21. Now, here's the show. My guest today is the fabulous Wonderhussy, whose real name is Sarah Jane Woodall. And I came across Wonderhussy in a very interesting way. I have a friend who's many, many years ago said to me, "You should interview Wonderhussy." And he thought your Yelp reviews were so well written. He told me to go look up your Yelp reviews, which I did. And I also was thoroughly entertained by them. Wonderhussy is a writer, a creator, an artist of many sorts. Also, I remember you did a story. There is a book that comes out every year. I think it's called Writers Las Vegas. One year it was called Back to Where You Once Belonged, and you had a story in there, which I also greatly appreciated. I think about when you were in the old days, if you went to see a show, they had camera girls who went around and took your picture and sold you pictures. Now everybody has their phones, so that kind of died.
Oh, you'd be surprised. They're still out there.
Are they really?
Yeah, I can't believe that company is still in business.
Wow, that is actually amazing. But what I wanted to focus on today, this is a story about people taking risks. And so after the camera job, you became a nude model. Is that correct?
Well, I did both at the same time for quite a while, and then I found that I was making better money and I enjoyed being a nude model more than being a camera girl, so I quit being a camera girl and focused on nude modeling full time.
And how did that first happen? Like, how did you hear about it or find it?
Well, I was already working as a freelance model, mostly just to get headshots so that I could work trade shows, be like a booth babe, do promotional marketing.
Uh-huh.
But this was the recession of 2008. Let's go back in time to 2008. Remember how terrible it was? Ooh, I had an underwater house. My mortgage was killing me. I couldn't get enough roommates to pay it. And so I had to turn to the dark side. I used to go on Craigslist to find all my modeling gigs.
Oh my God.
Back then. Yeah, so Craigslist had different categories, PR marketing, events, this, that. Well, they used to have an adult category, which they don't have anymore because of some unfortunate murders. But back then they had the adult category, and I never checked that because I was a nice gal. I just wanted to do trade shows. Well, I was desperate one day before, I remember it just like it was yesterday. I was sitting on the couch before I went into work as a camera girl. I thought, I got to make some more money. What can I do? Well, there's nothing in the gigs on Craigslist. Maybe I should check the adult gigs. And so I did, and that's how I got into, well, it's a long story, but that's basically how I got into nude modeling.
So for our audience who doesn't understand what this is not like doing pictures for Playboy. This is basically individuals who hire you to pose for them.
Right, exactly. So I'm being a little bit facetious when I say that I got all my work off Craigslist. I got a lot of gigs off Craigslist when I was working as a booth model. But for nude modeling, I actually used a modeling website. There's this website called modelmayhem.com. And it's like a Facebook for models and photographers because people don't realize there's a vast, vast, vast amount of unfulfilled artists in this world. Okay, these guys that are doctors, lawyers, engineers by day. Well, they always wanted to indulge their artistic side, but their parents wouldn't let them go to art school. They had to go be a doctor, go be an engineer. Well, they still have this unfulfilled artistic ambition. And so in their spare time, they like hiring models and creating what they feel to be beautiful works of art. And so that was my audience on Model Mayhem. I had a profile, here's my name, here's what I do, here's what I charge. Hire me if you're interested. I'm certainly not, or wasn't, the best looking woman in Las Vegas. There's plenty of beautiful women in Vegas. And I'm the last person who should be a model. I always say I'm short I'm built like a penguin, meaning that I have a long torso and short legs. I'm flat chested. Like, I don't have the physique of a model, but I have no tattoos, no breast implants, and I have brass friggin' balls. I'm not afraid to take people out into the desert. And that was the thing that got me the most work. Well, actually, all three of those: the no tattoos, no implants, and the fact that I was willing to take people out into the desert. Because a lot of these guys want to photograph a beautiful art nude out in a harsh desert landscape, but most models in Vegas are either too lazy or too scared to go out into the middle of nowhere with a complete stranger, right? Well, I wasn't afraid. That was my MO. I even had a little commercial I made, and I posted it on YouTube or Vimeo. Hey, photographers, are you coming to Las Vegas? Have you always wanted to shoot beautiful art nudes in the desert? Hi, I'm Wonderhussy, and for $500, I'll come pick you up at your hotel, 9 a.m. I'll drive you around to 3 different beautiful desert locations and pose nude at each one, and drop you back off at your hotel at 5 p.m. 8-hour day, $500. And I did that over and over and over. I once calculated how many strange men, and they were pretty much exclusively men, how many strange men I took out to the middle of nowhere and posed nude for, and it was over 500. Can you believe it?
Oh my God. So, but now in the beginning, before you got into marketing yourself like this, I mean, do you remember your very first time?
Well, I do.
The very first job?
Yeah, I do. Actually, the first nude photo shoot I did wasn't even for pay. It was to prove a point to myself. I had just broken up with a boyfriend who was very conservative. And so now I can, I can be myself again. I'm free of this conservative yoke. I can let my freak flag fly. And at that time I was modeling for, headshots and stuff like that. Oh, I don't do any nudes. I only do clothed. Well, then I asked myself, well, if I'm such a open-minded free spirit, why won't I pose nude? So I did a nude photo shoot just to prove a point to myself for no pay with the photographer whose work I admired. And the pictures came out really good. We went out to the desert outside Vegas, under a freeway overpass. It was not a glamorous location, and I was kind of like, what is this guy doing? But he was good. He understood light, and it was, shade, filtered light under this overpass. I don't know. The pictures came out really good, and so I was able to use those photos from that free shoot to promote myself and get paid work after that.
But okay, but it's one thing to go out with a guy that you know and you've seen his work and you know he's legitimate. But what about the first guy that was like off Craigslist or
well, so
well, but it was a stranger, right? I mean,
right. The Craigslist thing, that was a bad example. I went on Craigslist. That's how I started fetish modeling, which is sort of tied to nude modeling. But when it comes to just talking about nude modeling, I didn't do a lot of nude modeling off Craigslist. It was almost exclusively off Model Mayhem. And so on Model Mayhem, if somebody contacts you, it's just like Facebook. You get a message. Hi, my name is Richard Munchkin, and I'm a photographer based out of, Poughkeepsie, and I'd like to hire you. I'm working on a coffee table book. There is working on a coffee table book, right? Well, I never saw one. Anyway, now you can go to their profile and look at their pictures and go, oh, okay, this guy's pretty good. And if you want, they tag the name of the model in the photo. So now you can click on the model and go to her profile. And if you want, you could message the model going, hey, Richard Munchkin messaged me. He wants to do a photo shoot with me. I just wanted to check with you. Was he okay to work with? And then, the model will answer you, oh, yeah, he was very nice. Yeah, he's great. Or, oh, I don't know. Be careful working with him. He tried to grab my ass. Whatever. You can vet them more or less. And if anything makes you feel uncomfortable, well, you don't have to accept the booking. So my first paid shoot was on Model Mayhem. This guy, I won't say more about him other than his name was Bill, and he was from Massachusetts, and very nice guy, but man, I mean, it was slightly grim. He was staying at Harrah's, which isn't even a very nice hotel. This is before I got into the outdoor stuff. So I go to his room at Harrah's, and he's wearing a white undershirt, and he's got a beer gut, and it's just a dingy hotel room. And so here, okay, take this off, take that off. I'm like, oh man, I went to college. What is this? Like, but I think I charged $150 an hour for that shoot for 2 hours. I made $300. Okay, well, that wasn't so bad. And so I did. I shot in hotel rooms quite a bit. In fact, I often say I've been in more Vegas hotel rooms than any hooker. But then I grew to prefer shooting outdoors just because I felt I had more control over the situation, I guess, when I was shooting outdoors. Because, people would go, oh my gosh, weren't you scared to go out, take all these strange men out to the middle of the desert, out to the middle of nowhere? Well, no, if you look at it from their point of view, they were scared. They don't know where I'm taking them. There's no cell signal. A lot of times it's super hot. They have no idea where they are. They've got expensive camera gear with them. They've got pockets full of cash with which they plan to pay me. I could just as easily have taken them out somewhere and beat them up and robbed them, or had a posse out there waiting for them. Then oftentimes when we got to the first location, the guy would actually go, hey, hold on a minute. I need to text my friends because they were worried about me. I need to let them know that I'm okay. Like, they were just as scared as I was, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I always tell people, flip the script. Like, you go, oh, a woman going out to the desert by her. I found there was a weird, almost kind of power in nakedness. So I would go, I'd pick the guy up at the hotel. Okay, we're going out. The first location we're going to go to is out by Lake Mead. So it's an hour-long drive. We drive for an hour. We're chit-chatting, get to know each other. And I'm wearing like a little dress. I would always wear like a very loose, baggy dress. Because if you wear tight clothing, well, that's going to leave marks on your skin, right? Like from the elastic. And so when you take your clothes off, well, now he's got marks that he's got to Photoshop out. Like, that's not professional. So I always wear this baggy dress. So we'd get to the first location. Okay, here we are. Get out of the car. He gets all his gear out. We walk, hike back to a place where no one can see us. And then I would just whip off my dress. I mean, it wasn't like I was going to coyly whip out of it all sexy. No, I just whip it off. And so like the guy would be bent over getting his camera out of his bag or something. And then he would stand up and I'd be standing there buck naked. And I mean, a lot of times he was visibly taken aback, like almost put off or afraid. And it almost felt like I was wearing this weird kind of force field. Like, I almost always felt like I had the upper hand when I was shooting outdoors. Now, in a hotel room, I wasn't much different, but I don't know. I guess, I don't know why. I just preferred being outdoors because I like the outdoors, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. That's, not what I would have expected, but that's really interesting.
None of this is what anybody would expect, okay? I mean, when you say, oh, nude modeling, it just sounds so seedy. And I'm not going to lie, many of the shoots I did, like that first one I described at Harrah's, it was borderline seedy and depressing. But it's really, there are hundreds of women in the country today that are making a full-time living as a freelance art nude model like I did. It's a totally legitimate way to make a living.
So just on the technical side of this, you're going out to the desert and it's hot and you're nude, and you're in the desert. I mean, it's rocks and dirt, and aren't your feet burning up in some of these situations? I mean, it sounds like much of this would be very uncomfortable.
Well, it was, and none of it was comfortable. Like, it was a miserable job, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, and I wouldn't go back to it. I've been retired for about 4 or 5 years now. I wouldn't go back to it. But no, I mean, I'm in control of my own schedule. So if it's too hot, I don't have to book gigs. I mean, I didn't book a ton of shoots in December, January because it was too cold. And I didn't book very many gigs in June, July, August because it was too hot. Now, occasionally there would be a guy who, oh, the heat doesn't bother me. And I actually enjoyed those kind of shoots because, okay, the guy says the heat doesn't bother him, but he's not from around here. When we get out there, he's going to see how hot it is. He's going to get tired after a couple hours, and I'm going to get paid for the whole day. So that actually worked out in my favor for the most part. And I'm naked, So he's the guy wearing clothes and sweating,
No, I'd be more worried about your feet.
Well, I would wear shoes until I got to wherever it was that they wanted me to pose. And unfortunately, a fair amount of the time they wanted me to wear high heels, which I think is really silly. Like, if you're taking a beautiful artistic nude in the desert, why would you wear high heels or cowboy boots? But I'm here to tell you, I wore high heels or cowboy boots in at least 50% of these pictures. And these guys would all have the same ideas too. Like, they'd go, oh, I've got a really funny idea for a shot. How about if we have you stand at the side of the highway, lonely desert highway, just wearing high heels, nothing else, and hitchhiking? Oh, what a fun idea. Meanwhile, I did that same exact shot with like 50 different photographers,
I think Madonna did that shot in her book,
Sex.
Yeah, it's Sex. Except it wasn't in the middle of the desert. I think it was in like Miami or something.
Right. Well, there's that one too. I've been naked hitchhiking in a bunch of different places. It's a common trope, let's just say. And so that was probably the hardest part of the job in a weird way, was just suffering fools, if you know what I mean. Like, suffering fools is a huge part of being a model. You don't have to be the most beautiful girl. You don't have to have the best figure, but you have to be able to suffer fools gladly when they show you, oh, look at this picture I just took. Look how great it came out. Oh, wow, that's great. Even though it's overexposed, underexposed, out of focus, terrible composition, like cheesy. That you have to be an ego stroker par excellence. And that was the thing that I got tired of More than anything, man, after a while, I just wanted to be honest. To go, no, your work is corny. You have zero talent. You're an idiot. Give me your money and get the hell out of here, you know?
You told me once that you had a this is going to sound insane, that you had a photographer who was blind.
Oh, I did. He was legally blind. Wow, I'm impressed that you remember this. This guy was
Well,
from
it's so bizarre, right? I mean, how can you forget?
guy from Australia who was legally blind. So he had, I guess, tunnel vision to where he could see, but not well enough to drive or do any number of things. I don't know. He could see well enough, I guess, to. I mean, these cameras. Look, we've all seen that famous selfie that the monkey took of itself on National Geographic. Okay, a monkey can take a photo. Let's just put it that way. This poor blind guy, I mean, he saw well enough, but I set up the whole thing. I took him to the location. I did the pose. I held up the piece of fabric, whatever. And all he really had to do was click the shutter. I don't mean to disparage that guy because he was really nice and it ended up really opening up his world. Like from there, he went back to Australia and he joined Model Mayhem and he met all these other models and photographers and he got this whole network of friends and it was very creatively fulfilling for him. So I was actually really happy to have helped him out.
There you go. Art therapy.
Yes.
Modeling is therapy. So you mentioned that you moved into kink. How did that happen?
Well, sort of around the same time as I started nude modeling, I needed to pay my bills, my mortgage. And, I started the nude shoots, but then I also thought, okay, let me check this adult gig section on Craigslist. Well, that's where all this fetish stuff came up. And so I went, oh, okay. So with a lot of fetish modeling, you don't have to be naked. You can be wearing a bikini or regular clothes. I mean, you could be wearing fully clothed and just drinking a root beer and burping, and they'll pay you like weird stuff, like overeating donuts or spitting into a wine glass, like just weird stuff. I thought, well, what's the harm in that? I'll do that. And man, I did a lot of fetish modeling concurrent with my nude modeling. I mean, I was a full-time freelance model. I would do nude modeling. I would do fetish modeling. I would also do trade shows. I would hand out flyers. Whatever you wanted to hire me for based on my looks, I would do it.
I didn't know that fetish went into these. I didn't know that was a fetish, spitting into wine glasses or.
Listen, we don't have time in this podcast, but boy, there's a fetish for everything. I've done some very, very weird things.
So what is the most bizarre fetish that they ask you to do?
I'm glad you asked. Come to find out, there's a big fetish among men of a certain age, I guess, for women blowing up like blueberries. Okay, remember Willy Wonka?
Yeah, Willy Wonka.
So there was a segment of demographic of guys who were just hitting puberty right when they saw that scene, and it did something to them. So there's a woman in Vegas, I think she still does it. She exclusively does what she calls inflation videos. So you go over there and she has like this very loosely scripted scene, like the one that I did. I was a scientist trying to grow the world's biggest blueberry for Monsanto, and I was going to win the Nobel Prize if I could perfect this recipe. So I'm wearing a lab coat, my hair's up, I got glasses on, and I have this test tube full of this serum, and then I accidentally drop. Oh no, a tiny bit of the serum got on my hand. Oh, well, just one drop couldn't matter. Oh, but then all of a sudden my face starts turning blue. I start swelling up really, really big, bigger and bigger. Next thing you know, the buttons on my lab coat are popping up. Oh no. And then like there's certain things you're supposed to talk about, like, oh gosh, I can feel the juices swishing around under my skin. My skin feels so taut. I feel like I'm going to burst. Like these certain keywords. Yeah. The woman who did she would tell you like, okay, make sure you talk about how your skin is going to burst. Okay. But the video that I did, these inflatable suits are very expensive. They're Japanese latex inflatable suits, and don't ask me why they make them in Japan, but they do. Anyway, they're like $800. So she would reuse the suit as many times as she could. Well, by the time they made my video, the suit was on its last legs, and so her assistant accidentally overinflated it, and I actually exploded, which is what every fetishist really wants to see, the blueberry actually blow up. But obviously they don't do that because it'd be very expensive. Well, in this video, it did happen. And so she was able to charge more for that video. And it ended up being one of her best-selling videos of all time.
Amazing. Just amazing. Things I never would have thought of. But hey, whatever gives somebody pleasure, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, then...
Yeah, everything was consensual. And with the fetish, I thought this was interesting. With nude modeling, everybody who hired me was a man. I think one time a couple hired me, but so obviously the husband was really behind it. Basically all men hiring me. With fetish, all these fetish websites, most of them were run by women. And so obviously the end user, the guy who's buying the clips, it's a guy, but women were directing, shooting, starring in all these. And so it was just kind of like, oh, all us girls goofing around wearing this blueberry suit, doing this blueberry thing. Like, oh, it was actually kind of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, you're like making a little movie or whatever. So
Yeah, and that's what I enjoyed about it. She would have a very loose script, like with the Monsanto blueberry thing. I came up with all those details. All she told me was, okay, you're a scientist and you're trying to make the world's biggest blueberry. Well, I'm a dramatic person, so now all of a sudden, oh, I'm working for Monsanto and I'm going to win the Nobel Prize. And I like ad-libbing dialogue and making weird stuff up, so it was a lot of fun for me.
So you did not think of these things as risky or big gambles. Is there anything in your life where you did think of it as risky or a big gamble?
Well, yeah, some of these shoots, to be honest, I was always pretty vanilla. I mean, even with nude modeling, we used to say, like, you know, on your profile, you could say what you were comfortable doing, what kinds of pictures you were comfortable shooting. And I would always say, I'm comfortable shooting Playboy style nudes, which means your legs, your knees are together. You're not spreading it. Like that's
Yeah, yeah.
penthouse or hustler stuff. And then with fetish, kind of the same thing. Like, oh, I don't really do anything like explicit. But every now and then somebody would hire me for something that I really didn't feel comfortable with. Matter of fact, oh, you just reminded me. One of the very first fetish gigs I did was on Craigslist. And it was a guy who was doing a tickle fetish video. Okay, there's a fetish for women being tickled. And I was new to it, but I thought, oh, okay, I have to dress up like he said to wear business clothes or something. He's going to tie me up and tickle me. Oh, okay. So I go to the Excalibur. It was at the Excalibur. I go up to his room, knock on the door. Guy opens. Hey, hi, come on in. Okay, so here's the setup. The script for this is I'm a guy who invented a game, and I'm trying to sell you this game, and you're the casino executive, and you don't want to buy my game. And so then I chloroform you, and I tie you up and tickle you until finally you say, okay, I'll buy your game. Oh, okay, sure, sounds good. So he tied me up and chloroformed me. Now, I don't know if this guy is really going to chloroform. Like this guy actually tied me up and put a rag on my face. Now, it was just a washcloth. There was nothing on it. And everything went fine. But talk about a gamble, man. It could have gone either
Yeah.
way.
I mean, and he really tied you up. You were actually tied up, not just like fake tied up.
Oh gosh, I don't remember, but I think so. Yeah, I mean, because they want it to look believable for the camera. I mean, probably he didn't tie me up so tight that it hurt. Although, gosh, another guy that I shot with a number of times did. I mean, he tied you up real tight, and his thing was you were the babysitter, and he was little Johnny, and so little Johnny, your little Johnny's parents go out for the night, and okay, little Johnny, what do you want to do? Let's play cops and robbers. I'll be the robber, you be the cops. I'm gonna tie you up. Well, okay, Johnny, but don't tie me too tight. Oh, I won't, babysitter. Well, then guess what? He would tie you up real tight, and then he would just make fun of you and tease you, and you would struggle around trying to get loose. And
Yeah. Did you ever have a customer where you actually felt in danger?
no, and I do have a handgun, and so I wasn't in the habit of taking it with me on these photo shoots, but there were two times when I did bring my gun, just because I was kind of weirded out about the situation, and both of those happened to be off of Craigslist, not Model Mayhem. Okay, Model Mayhem, I felt more secure because, like I said, I could vet resources. Craigslist, you don't know, it's just some guy on Craigslist. Well, I was desperate, I needed money, whatever, so I took these Craigslist bookings, and two of them I felt weird enough about that I brought my gun. And both of those times turned out to be just fine. I felt silly, and of course I didn't tell the guy I had a gun with me. But that was it. 2 out of over 500.
Wow. So what are you doing now? You got out of this 4 years ago, 5 years ago. What are you doing now?
Well, so with modeling, I was always out in the desert, right? Like trying to find cool new desert places to pose nude. Because these guys, they always want to shoot you in old abandoned buildings or old abandoned factories or, whatever. So I'm always out scouting around trying to find new abandoned places. Well, eventually I got more interested in scouting around the abandoned places, and I started filming videos of that and putting them on YouTube. And next thing you know, people started following me on YouTube, and well, by gum, I got into YouTubing, and now I have a YouTube channel where and the irony of all this is my YouTube videos are completely PG, or G even. I'm totally clothed, and I make 10 times as much money as I did modeling naked.
Really? Wow.
How about that?
Yeah. So I have seen some of this. You go explore ghost towns and abandoned places, and you're basically a desert rat.
Basically, and people seem to really enjoy it. I have people from all over the world watching.
Yeah. All right. And you're also on Instagram. And are you doing anything? Do you have any other creative outlets? Are you writing?
Unfortunately, I don't have time to write anymore, and I enjoy writing quite a bit. But YouTubing takes up so much of my time. I write scripts for my videos, and that's about all I write anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Well, for our listeners, go check out Wonderhussy. You can find her on YouTube and on Instagram, and I'll put links in the show notes. And what about Yelp? Are you still writing any Yelp reviews?
Oh man, I feel like Yelp is so rigged. There's no point. I write Google reviews every now and then, but only when it's warranted.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's nice to get that off my chest.
Well, that's it for today's show. If you like the show and want to support the show, the best thing you can do is leave a review wherever it is that you get this podcast. I really appreciate it. And also tell a friend. Sorry, I have no recommended for you this week. I didn't find anything that I thought was really worth recommending. So have a good week, and I'll see you next time.